folks. One of the things that gets asked about a lot on the channel is the notion about what are neopronouns. And I have a video for this. It'll probably be around here somewhere. But specifically, what do each neopronoun mean? And to me, I've always looked at that as much more of an individual process. For some people, they can mean a lot of different things. And I can't say to what all those are. Different ones are going to have different meaning to different people. You should probably ask them. But if we're talking about mine, and we're talking about mine as a person who goes by she, her, faer, what does faer mean? So one of the things that I find frustrating is that the term faerie has kind of been sanitized. Anyone who's even like read a 3rd grade book on mythology knows that like the fae are not these like Tinkerbell-esque beings or, you know, little cute hob-esque creatures that, you know, spin shit. The fae were beings that were not to be fucked with. They were beings that existed before man. They were beings that could kidnap people, switch out children. They were beings that would curse you. They could do all sorts of shit. And a lot of creatures fall under the term faerie. And while I enjoy all of those, and I do get a shit ton of mileage out of Maleficent quotes, mine actually comes from something that's sort of a creation out of those myths. Who here is familiar with the world of darkness? Specifically, the new world of darkness. I'm talking about a series of games known as Vampire the Requiem, Werewolf the Forsaken, Mage the Awakening, I played a lot of old World of Darkness too. Trust me, I am very familiar. Still a huge fan of Vampire the Masquerade. 5th edition is the shit. So, one of the reasons why faer attracted me was because one of the games that I would run for tabletop for a lot of my friends was Changeling the Lost. And in Changeling the Lost, you usually play a human being who was absconded away by the fae, and sometimes the fae would leave behind a being. This being was known as a fetch. The fetch would be sometimes a perfect recreation of you. Actually, sometimes even better. The fetch would be this being that would live your life better than you did. Other times, they'd, you know, throw a little bit of less leaves in it. Maybe like, you know, a few, whoop, hit my desk. Maybe a few less earthworms and whatnot, because these are generally made out of just whatever they can get their fucking mitts on. And these things could be fucking serial killers, just waiting until they felt like getting bored enough with your life after fucking it up enough to hurt your loved ones. Monsters left behind in your wake, and while you're gone, you get taken away to another realm where you are made to do a job. And the fae are these sort of capricious beings that don't really understand empathy. In fact, they're beyond it. They're spiteful, they're mean, but almost in sort of this distant way, and I'll get to more of that in a minute. Imagine you're taken away to the land of the fae, which in that game is called, I think some pronounce it the way faerie. The way we always pronounce it in our game, because it sounded cooler, was faerie, so fight me. But in the land of faerie, the gentry, the fae, these beings were gods, essentially. And they would have you be all sorts of things. Maybe you're a torch. Maybe you're a part of the wall. Maybe you're a rock. Maybe you're one of their lovely hounds. But regardless, you would be some sort of thing at their disposal. Correct, Venus. And as such, over time, by being in that role, whether you're a gladiator, a monster that eats human flesh, a torch, a rock, a creature with so many knuckles on its hand that it looks almost spider-like and can create clockwork concoctions. The fact is that you're changed irreversibly. You're made part of the land of the Fae. And some of these people escape. Remembering their old lives, they make their way out of faerie and through the mighty hedge maze that exists in between worlds. The hedge is a horrifying place that has a day-night cycle, but other than that, it's not much like our world. It appears just like a normal hedge maze, except for the fact that horrifying things lie inside. Monsters, creatures of the Fae, things that are outside of these worlds. And as such, not many make it all the way back, but some do. And when they come back, they realize something. The realm of the Fae has changed them. And what's really lovely about this idea is that you come out and you notice, oh wait, I was this creature that my lord would hunt down again and again. I still have the stag horns. I used to serve as my mistress's candlelight. I'm still flame. Now, to the humans, you look normal, fine. But if you looked in a mirror, or another Fae-touched creature saw you, they would see you for what you truly were. Now, that is the story of the game of Changeling, and the politics and the systems they get into and interactions and trying to beat back and deal with the Fae. They exist in 4 courts, the ones based on the seasons. Each of them feeds off a particular emotion, because one of the ways their powers are used is by feeding off emotions. Spring, I believe it's desire. Summer, I believe it's wrath, or anger. Can't remember which. Fall is obviously fear. And winter, I believe, is sadness and despair. It's been a while. I might remember. I have some of those a little off. I'll double check. Anyway. Yeah, right? This is Halloween. This is Halloween. So what the hell is my point with telling you about this game that's, 10 years old? There was a book that came out for this after they put out the 4 seasons books talking about combat, the Fae, monsters, all that stuff. And then they put out a book that was called Equinox Road. And this book was very different. Because what it explained was, how does a changeling become a Fae? And the way this would happen is you'd become the highest level of power, most directly connected to the weird that any changeling could. And your clarity, that is your sanity, your ability to tell the real world from the world of Fae, is gone. And the story they use for this is a friend of theirs being tied to a chair, a bunch of changelings trying to save this person. And what happens is that he gets bored of their shenanigans, summons plant roots to kill them all, opens the chest cavity of his friend, and uses that as a doorway to the hedge and to faerie. Because in Changeling, any doorway can lead to the hedge. The one thing this book brought up that was very fascinating is it finally explained what the Fae truly were. And they were not what they seemed. Despite the fact that they were beings that wore fineries and cloaks, sometimes could be witches, sometimes could be awful ogres. Think of everything you ever could. But a better way to explain the Fae is to explain a story. Imagine a knight riding to go fight an evil dragon. And that knight has a magical sword. And this knight rides a gallant steed. And he rides through the lands, fighting monster after monster, until he comes to an evil castle and fights the dragon to win back his lady love. The Fae are the knight, the sword, the stallion, the land, the monsters, the castle, the dragon, the sky, all of it. The Fae don't exist as singular beings. A good way to look at them would be as these immense beings outside of human comprehension that essentially are putting on finger puppets to try to talk to amoeba. They're beings that exist beyond those concepts. And as somebody who's played a lot in state experiences, such as a lot of psychedelics, and also done a number of meditative states, energetically induced ones with pagans and stuff like that, and a lot of meditation, a lot of fucking meditation. State experiences happen. Moments of non-duality happen. There are moments where you feel larger than the universe. As such, what this truly means is that the Fae exist as beings of utter malignance that exist beyond all ken. And in order to interact with singular beings, they take on a guise that is equivalent to, like I said, a finger puppet talking to an amoeba. And of course, they have a hard time empathizing with you because do we actually empathize with amoeba? Tiamat said green and orange morality. Kinda. Yeah, kinda. And as such, these beings can never understand us. But they do want us. And the reason being is because, to some degree, having a human come in changes the narrative. Imagine you're a being that exists entirely in narratives. In fact, the way you eat your own kind is by having a better narrative. The Fae, in the back of the book, you could actually play one. And not one of the little tiny ones, one of their little finger puppets, but the actual ones. And it's basically just a game of power. You're trying to get more power than the one next to you. And if you do, you consume them. They are a cannibalistic apex predator that is trying to tell a better story. And one of the ways they do that is by kidnapping people from their lives, leaving behind them monstrosities, because humans are the wild card. We are agents of chaos, to quote someone. So when I think of Fae, that's the metaphor I think of. The idea of something beyond. That's not to inflate my ego and say that I'm such a thing, though from a Zen perspective, we all are, so fight me. But more in the sense that in my own search for my own gender and my own understanding, one of the things that had to be very clear is there is a part of me, and this could be due to borderline, this could be due to a number of things I don't fucking know and particularly don't care at this point. But there appears to be some aspect of my sense of self that I can't seem to nail down. And it seems big, hard to define, and I can sort of take on guises with it, but none of them feel right. None of them feel correct. To me, the Fae are unknowable beings that do not have any concept of good or evil, no concept of right or wrong, just capricious beings that are made of entirely pure selfishness. Beings that wear identities like suits and take them off and throw them away. As someone who's been a priest, who is a therapist, is a trans woman, is a friend, is a parent, and all these other things, I know what it's like to wear different hats, and sometimes those hats feel like you. So that's what being Faer means to me. It is honoring and respecting that part of me that I cannot define. It is that part of me that I cannot put a nail on because it always feels too big, too complicated. Does that make sense? And yes, I saw your message earlier, Thadagor. You absolutely should go back and read those books. Equinox Road is a fucking trip. There's literally a picture of a dude getting his chest ripped open and being used as a door so a guy can go home. Holy shit. Yeah, Venus, we should talk more. you know, as fellow gentry. You also figure out why I like SCP so much. Yeah, we should have a Faer discussion. I think we should get all the Faer people together and like powwow. But Tiamat, we love mirrors. Ooh, stuff to think about, always. I am nothing if not a provocateur. Remember, my goal is always to make it so identities are play. I want to live in a world where we don't have to be stuck in these deterministic hells. You want to be a woman? Do you feel like a woman? Then you are a woman. If you feel like a man, if you know you're a man, you are a man. And so on and so forth. The reality of this is that, by all means, the world does not have to be as dark as we make it. Gender is play. Identity is play. I want to get into a fun Zen discussion sometime. So, I guess I'll leave that here. But I hope that helped. Something a little off the cuff and spontaneous. Might have to do more of these. Talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also consider donating to the channel. You can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip or at patreon.com and become a patron. Patreon.com/transgirltherapist.